with Brave Botanicals and the Brave New You Recovery Support Group, and today I want to talk about Kratom and addiction, which is a pretty hot topic and a controversial topic at that. I'm the operator of Brave Botanicals, been in business for a few years now, and in that business I have come to learn a lot about addiction and come to learn how Kratom has helped many people to overcome addiction. And Kratom, I wanted to dive a little deeper and really help people to combat addiction and deal with some of the root causes and traumas and pain and suffering that may have led them to become addicted in the first place. And that's why we started the Brave New You Recovery Support Group. You can find a link down below if you want to join that group. It's just this meeting space where people that struggle with addiction or people that have overcome addiction in the past can gather and have community and camaraderie. Also, we're offering a free ounce of Kratom. As you said, you have to pay $5 shipping and handling. Go to freeounceofkratom.com, freeounceofkratom.com, and we'll send you this free ounce. So there's some questions that I'm going to go over, and the first of which is, why does Kratom help people to overcome addiction? There's a significant number of my customers that utilize Kratom to manage or to end their addiction altogether. As many people are aware, there is what's being called an opioid crisis in this country right now. The pharmaceutical industrial complex has run roughshod, and doctors are overprescribing opioids, Percocet, Oxycontin, Vicodin, you name it. Opioids are substances which interact with the opioid receptors. Many people would identify Kratom as one of those substances because it does interact with the opioid receptors along with the dopamine and serotonin receptors. I should say also, just a quick, what is Kratom? It's made from the powderized leaves of the Kratom evergreen tree that's grown primarily in Southeast Indonesia. It's a natural plant that people take for a variety of reasons, from chronic pain to stress and anxiety, energy and focus, and as we're talking about in this video, overcoming addiction. And so this opioid crisis is going on. Some people get in a car accident or they have to have knee surgery and they are prescribed these pain pills. They take the pain pills, they're overprescribed the pain pills, they become dependent on the pain pills, and they're addicted. They go back to their doctor. Sometimes the doctor refuses to renew prescriptions. Sometimes the doctor renews the prescriptions even though the people no longer, even though they've been healed. A lot of people still manage or deal with the chronic pain. Some people, the scripts are over and they still want to, they're dependent, they're physically addicted to the opioids, and they'll go out on the streets. And many people are just normal, average, run-of-the-mill Americans. They get in a car accident, they become dependent on Oxycontin. The Oxycontin no longer gives them their fix, the desired effect, and they escalate even to heroin. Now, there's a lot of people that are addicted to opiates, which is things derived from the poppy plant, and then opioids, substances that interact with the opioid receptors. And the ones that we're referring to would be prescription pain medicine, specifically synthetic chemically based pharmaceutical. They become dependent, and a lot of people recognize it's a problem. They can no longer look after their children. They're suffering at work. They're finding themselves loopy and out of it, so they try to quit. However, they can't quit because when they do stop the opioids, they have terrible, terrible withdrawal symptoms, from sweats, tremors, nausea, migraine headaches, shakes, you name it. Very unpleasant experience. And what people end up doing is they don't have the will, their body is just too painful, so they go ahead and go back to the opioids or back to the heroin. Now, here's what the magic of Kratom is all about. It too, as I said before, interacts with the body's opioid receptors, so people can still find relief from chronic pain. However, unlike the prescription pain medicine, it doesn't cause respiratory depression. It's not known to cause respiratory depression, and that's in fact why people are actually, the main reason why people are dying from opioid overdoses is because they're taking so much of it and it basically shuts down their lungs. That's not really known to happen with Kratom. So when people experience the withdrawal symptoms, they're trying to quit the heroin or the opioids, but the withdrawal symptoms are too severe. There's whole word of mouth that's been spreading. I'm doing videos like this. There's all sorts of information about Kratom, YouTube videos. They learn about Kratom from a friend, they give it a try, and wouldn't you know it, it enables them to mitigate, sometimes eliminate the withdrawal symptoms altogether so they can get through that difficult period, which so many people are not able to get to, and they just go back to the opioids or opiates. And that's really where the magic in Kratom lies. And I've had so many stories of my customers and people that have taken Kratom in general that have reported it's helped them to do just that, and they're extremely grateful for trying the Kratom. And again, if you're experiencing this, or if you have someone in your family experiencing this, you can go to freeounceofkratom.com and we'll send you a free ounce to give it a try. This would be enough, hopefully, to get through at least a few days or more if someone is taking a whole lot because they're really struggling with that. Now, it's worth noting that some people simply become dependent on Kratom at that time, right? As I said before, a lot of people become addicted because they experienced some sort of trauma in their childhood or in their lives, and they started taking drugs, even alcohol, in order to numb the pain. And so some people simply will trade opioids or heroin or meth even for Kratom. Now, I've been criticized being in this industry because people are like, well, you're just getting people addicted to Kratom. Well, I recognize that. In reality, Kratom is a massive example of harm reduction because, as I said before, unlike the opioids and unlike the opiates, Kratom doesn't cause respiratory depression. So while there may be some people that ended up becoming dependent or addicted to Kratom, at least it's not going to kill them like overdosing on the prescription medicine or heroin might do. And again, that's why we started the Brave New You Recovery Support Group, to just do our little part to try to help people to understand that there's a path towards finding true peace, true balance, true healing, overcoming and dealing with the trauma or whatever it may be that led people to become addicted. And again, people become addicted for all sorts of different reasons. Like I said before, it could be just your average American that gets in a car accident, they get prescribed the prescription medicine. And so to answer the first question, Kratom helps people to overcome addiction because it also interacts with the opioid receptors along with the dopamine and serotonin receptors, so there can be some feel-good effects, and it helps to minimize the withdrawal symptom. There's actually a really powerful story that I like to share with one of my early Kratom customers. It was a woman, an older woman based in California. She was a grandmother, and she would watch her 4 grandchildren. She was addicted to Percocet for quite some time, and she tried and tried and tried to quit, but the withdrawal symptoms were so bad she found herself coming back. Well, someone turned her on to Kratom. She ordered Kratom from us, and sure enough, within 4 days, she was completely off of the Percocet altogether, and she reported that she experienced very minimal withdrawal symptoms, and she was so grateful. That was a big moment for me because when I ran a bookstore, we also sold health products in Austin, Texas. This is about 3 or 4 years ago. We would sell Kratom, and it wasn't that big of a seller. It wasn't until the government tried to ban it in 2016 that it started selling really good. But I would just sell it. It sold. I knew that it was a natural substance. We were in all sorts of herbs and stuff like that. And it wasn't until I started getting phone calls and getting feedback like this that I really leaned into the Kratom and realized this is really going to help people. Food on the table, to pay the rent. I'm an activist, and it feels good to help people and to see those profound effects in so many people. And that's just one story. Let me see, Jackie Plumley here, who is a Kratom user, I believe. She says, the doctors put my husband on Suboxone to get off the opiates. Instead, being the maintenance only drug it was intended to be, and weaning the dose down over a few weeks, they continued to up and up his dose. He became addicted to Suboxone, and the withdrawal from Suboxone was worse than the opiates. That's when I reached out to you and you sent us Kratom and saved his life. Thanks for sharing, Jackie, and I'm so proud of you and your husband. I'm seeing his posts, and it looks like he's really going through a major transformation, so that's so awesome to hear about. And you bring up a good point. The establishment medical industrial complex has what they believe to be a solution for people that are suffering from opioid or opiate addiction, and that's to use other opioids, other pharmaceuticals like Suboxone or methadone in order to minimize those withdrawal symptoms. But far too many people simply become addicted to the Suboxone and the methadone. And now, like I said before, some people can simply trade with an addiction to Kratom, but the big difference is, unlike the methadone, Suboxone, or the opioids and opiates themselves, the withdrawal symptoms are far less severe, And again, the biggest difference is it's not going to be deadly. Now, the media will try to make it appear as though there's been 90 kratom-related deaths. Again, kratom-related deaths, or deaths associated with kratom, when in reality, that's actually not the case. A lot of those people have other substances in their systems, even like fentanyl and heroin and all sorts of stuff. So that's bogus. It's probably highly unlikely that anyone's died from kratom alone. I wouldn't say that it hasn't happened, but it's just important to use things responsibly. Here are some tips where people that are taking kratom can avoid becoming dependent or addicted themselves. And now, mind you, people become addicted to coffee, right? There were people that I knew that were, he's a whole new man. That's so good to hear. There are people that I've known that have been so addicted to coffee that when they stop drinking coffee, they don't have it. They have extreme migraines that just put them out. And so you can become addicted to all sorts of stuff, and it's all about personal responsibility. So I always encourage people that are using kratom regularly and it becomes part of their regular diet, I encourage them to take breaks if they can. So if it's something that becomes a daily thing, to try to take 2 to 3 days off or more, maybe every 2 or 3 weeks or so you don't develop a tolerance, because that's how a lot of these things spiral out of control. People take a lot of it, they take it every day, then they find themselves needing more to have the desired effect. They start taking more, and that cycle repeats itself. So it's always important to give yourself a little bit of time to move through that. Now, another question that I asked is, why aren't more people utilizing kratom? There is an opioid epidemic. Some small towns, for example, have it really bad, and you would think that this would be offered up as a solution because it is so much safer than the methadone and Suboxone, and so much safer than a lot of the alternatives, well, not the alternatives, a lot of the mainstream solutions out there. Well, unfortunately, in case you weren't aware, if you're watching this video, you probably are, there exists a pharmaceutical industrial complex. I say that, I think it was Dwight D. Eisenhower who talked about the military industrial complex, where the weapons manufacturers, they kind of got a foothold over the Congress. I think he originally called it the Congressional Military Industrial Complex. And so there's a revolving door where the defense contractors bankroll the Congress people, and they become the bureaucrats and the Department of Defense, so on and so forth. The same thing exists with the pharmaceutical industrial complex, the Congressional Pharmaceutical Industrial Complex, whereby the executives at pharmaceutical companies become the regulators, they bankroll the politicians. Kratom represents a threat to their profit margins. I saw once it was estimated that the kratom industry does around $5 billion a year. It's also estimated that there's like 5 to 10 million kratom users in the country. And so I've also read a stat that the pharmaceutical pain medicine industry does like 20 billion or 25 billion. So 5 billion out of 25 billion, that's actually represents pretty serious competition. Kratom represents pretty serious competition, and that's why they're actually trying to patent like the chemical compounds in kratom. So kratom represents a threat, and unfortunately, the FDA has this huge process that costs tens, hundreds of millions of dollars and takes so long for something to be considered a new dietary ingredient so it can go on to become a quote-unquote legitimate supplement, a dietary supplement, a FDA approved, right? Thankfully, most people are beginning to see through the BS that the government, the FDA, the CDC, and sometimes if it's FDA approved, then maybe it's something that we should avoid, right? I mean, the fentanyl is FDA approved, the Oxycontin is FDA approved, and this stuff is killing so many people. So because it isn't an approved dietary supplement, because it hasn't gone through the new dietary ingredient process, the federal government, the state and local governments discourage people from using it. It's precisely why I can't accept credit cards for kratom. We use e-check, totally safe and secure. You use your checking account or routing number, also cryptocurrency, of course. That's why my Facebook advertising account has been shut down for promoting kratom. It's why YouTube accounts and YouTube videos get deleted. You can't do Google AdWords. So it's clear that they're trying to suppress this amazing plant that comes from Mother Nature. And I do believe that more people would be using it, and it could potentially completely destroy and defeat this opioid epidemic, this simple plant that so many people are benefiting from. Optimistic. The government is losing face, and far more people have faith, and far more people believe the lies that are being put out by the Food and Drug Administration, the CDC, the local health and human services department, and there's a grassroots movement of word of mouth spreading where people are having amazing results themselves, or they're seeing their family members or friends come off of an addiction using Kratom, and they're spreading the word. They feel motivated to do that. So that's what we're doing here. Again, I'm the operator and owner of Brave Botanicals. We've been in business for around 3 years. We offer really high with amazing customer service, and whenever I started getting shut out by Facebook advertising, I decided I need to do something to circumvent this blockade that they're doing, this censorship that they're doing. That's when I launched the free ounce. So it's like, okay, you guys are going to try to keep me from spreading the gospel of Kratom and how it's helping so many people. Well, we're just going to give it away for free and get it out that way. So you can go to freeounceofkratom.com. If you know someone that's struggling with addiction, you can simply pay the $5 shipping and handling and then pop their shipping address in, and we'll send it out to them. Try to use their email address as well so they can get our little introductory sequence and teach them about Kratom and some of the benefits. If you yourself are struggling with addiction, you can go to freeounceofkratom.com and try a free ounce. I should also mention that it's helped people to overcome alcoholism. And it's helped people. Somebody really close to me was dependent on Adderall for like 5 to 10 years. They took it in college, and then they took it in their career, and they would feel like they needed it when they were feeling overwhelmed. And that created a vicious cycle whereby she was drinking a lot of alcohol in order to pump the brakes, as she said. So she was dependent on the Adderall. She would get off of work. She would still be high. And like, it literally is meth, right? It's like a legal speed. And so she would need to come down so she could rest, and she would drink, and that created a vicious cycle. I introduced her to Kratom, gave her some support and some encouragement, and she was able to kick the Adderall. A lot of people quit alcohol because Kratom, now it does feel good, and I think that's why some people take it. There's a lot of people in life that just don't enjoy sobriety, right? And of course, the magic thing that we all strive towards is to use like yoga and meditation and psychoanalysis and brotherhood and family and pets and being in the garden in the sun and being with family and frolicking through the fields, right? That's what we should do in order to find peace and center in ourselves without needing to rely on any substances. But that's what we're striving for. And in the meantime, we have these things that can help, and Kratom is one of them. But I believe that Kratom, it gives people something to take, right? And I'm not going to say that when you're drinking Kratom, you're not sober, because it's a very mild effect. If you take a lot of it, it can have a little stronger euphoria, maybe some of that warmness. But I think it gives people something to do. So someone that drinks, they get off work, they're stressed out, maybe their family beer, this is my routine, this is what I do. Or I have a social network of friends and we go out to the clubs every weekend or for happy hour. This is what we do. It's what I'm used to. It gives you an alternative. So rather than going to buy the booze or sitting down on the couch, turning the TV on and drinking a 6-pack, you can pour up some Kratom and you can still have that routine. You can still take something that makes you feel a little different than being sober. And I think that's why it's a good middle ground for people that are trying to overcome stuff. I should say a word of warning. If there are people that were previously addicted to opioids or opiates and they managed to overcome that addiction, maybe they used the mainstream methods with the methadone or Suboxone, or maybe they just quit cold turkey, I would encourage you to avoid Kratom altogether, because like I was saying, this is why this came to mind. When there is good, strong Kratom and you take a decent amount of it, you can have some euphoric effects. You can even, if it's good stuff, you can have like a little bit of warmth in the face, which is similar to the effects of opioids. And so the caution is that if someone's completely quit, they're 100% sober, they start taking Kratom, it could remind them of that feeling that they used to love so much. Then they could take the Kratom, they start taking them too much, then they develop a tolerance, and then they're like, this is no longer doing it for me. Before you know it, they're back on the opioids or the opiates. So it's a wonderful tool for those that are transitioning from addiction to sobriety. But if someone is already sober completely and they kicked the habit a long time ago, then you may not even want to pick up or try Kratom, right? So that's going to be up to you to have the personal responsibility and the discernment to determine where you fall in those areas. So yeah, that's it. Again, we have a recovery support group for those of you that are struggling with addiction or that overcame addiction, people that are previously addicted and they've kicked it. Please join the group so you can offer some encouragement and let people know that there is the end of the tunnel. We also have a Brave Botanicals community group. Those are for Kratom users or Kratom curious folks. Brave Botanicals customers as well. It's a place where we can all talk shop and answer any questions. And again, we have a free ounce offer I was holding it in my hand earlier, but I tossed it out. This is an ounce of Kratom. It's 28 grams. If you take about a teaspoon or two, this will last you around 2 weeks. People that are coming off of an addiction or they're using it to overcome the withdrawal symptoms will probably want to take as much as they can in order to minimize those withdrawal symptoms. And again, for those of you that are just joining us, just to recap, people use Kratom in order to minimize the withdrawal symptoms. A lot of people are addicted to opioids or opiates, Oxycontin, Percocet, Vicodin, or even heroin. They know it's a problem. They try to quit. When they try to quit, they have terrible withdrawal symptoms, shaking, vomiting, nausea, splitting headaches, and so they just go ahead and go back to the pills or back to the heroin. People are introduced to Kratom in this period, and they're able to dramatically minimize, if not eliminate, the withdrawal symptoms altogether, enabling to make that difficult transition from addiction to sobriety. Now, however, I should warn you that people can become dependent on Kratom. If you take a lot of it and you take it every day, you can have physical withdrawal symptoms. I would say that there's been periods of time where I've taken Kratom consistently for a longer period of time. And then, as I said before, a tip to not become dependent is to take breaks. And when I do take those breaks, I've never personally experienced any physical withdrawal symptoms. Now, there are people that are taking an ounce a day, or they're just taking a whole lot because they were addicted to something, they became addicted to Kratom, and I imagine those people would experience withdrawal symptoms. In fact, there's a Reddit group that I just came across that has like 10,000 users on this subreddit, and it's people that are coming off of Kratom and that are addicted to Kratom. It's like a Kratom addiction support group, and I went through and read some of the stuff, and there's actually everything. It's really important upon the individual to use personal responsibility. And again, some tips to avoid becoming dependent on Kratom. If it does become a regular part of your day, your daily routine, it's important to take 2 to 3, maybe more days off in order to avoid developing a tolerance, because it's the tolerance that gets people down the rabbit hole of addiction. All right, Aaron, thank you for sharing. Aaron Deckard says, recovery through Kratom and now almost 5 years clean. Super proud of you. Consider joining our recovery support group to provide some support and some words of wisdom for others. Thank you everyone for watching the video. Again, if you are struggling with addiction or you know someone struggling with addiction, we're offering a free ounce. You can go to freeounceofkratom.com, freeounceofkratom.com, pay $5 in shipping and handling, and we would be excited to send you this Kratom and hope that you can find peace and sobriety and balance as well. This is John Bush. I'm out. Thanks for watching.